For upper management, 50% of their time is likely spent in meetings. That equates to 30,000 to 45,000 hours over the course of a career.
That's 20 years you spend in a meeting. That's nuts.
That's insane. And think about how many meetings could be an email. How many meetings you don't need to be at.
Oh, yes. And then think about how much time goes into preparing for a meeting.
Oh, ridiculous amount of time.
Right. So what if you start costing that up?
Welcome back to Unapologetic Rabble-Rousers. I'm Doc Shelley.
And I'm Carla Lewis. We just wrapped up a session on pet peeves. And there was one that just deserves its very own session. And that's what this is going to be about. And we could call it meetings after the meetings.
We could.
So it's something that we have seen so often and actually been a part of. And there are some interesting things to think about when we get into this topic, but you brought up some interesting statistics.
Yes. So these are from Simon Sinek. I love me some Simon Sinek. I was actually looking for something else and came across this, but statistics reveal that 47% of workers consider meetings their top time waster at work. That's almost half of the workforce. And then the other interesting thing was he said that for upper management, 50% of their time is likely spent in meetings. That equates to 30,000 to 45,000 hours over the course of a career. Let me put this in terms that make even a little bit more sense. That is akin to watching the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy from start to finish 4,000 times.
So it was 35 to 40,000 hours in a career?
30 to 45,000 hours.
Okay. So think
spent
about
in a meeting.
In a meeting. Okay. And if we
kill me now.
Yeah, right. And if we use the 2,000 hour work year,
2,080 hours a year.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's 20 years.
Exactly.
That's 20 years you spend in a meeting.
In like a 40-year career.
That's nuts.
That's insane.
And
think about how many meetings could be an email. How many meetings you don't need to be at.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
All the time you could save by not being in meetings.
And then there's we're going to get into meetings after the meetings, but to this point, another thing to think about is meetings don't start on time.
My meetings start on time.
And the fact that there is...
And they end on time, too.
Well, that's...
Or early.
That's really good. That's really good. In other people's worlds, not everybody that should be at the meeting gets to the meeting at the beginning of the meeting.
Nope.
And so you may start your meeting on time, and I'm, of course, not talking about you. I'll talk about me. I may start my meeting on time, but what gets lost by starting when all the people who are supposed to be there aren't there, especially if the real people who should be there aren't there, you waste time waiting. On average, 7 to 10 minutes of every meeting.
That's why I don't wait.
I know. 7 to 10 minutes of every meeting is wasted.
And you know what happens when you stop waiting for them? They start showing up.
Yes. Fair enough.
Because when you wait, then it becomes okay.
Yes.
You're saying, sure, you can come to my meeting 10 or 15 minutes late. Guess what? You don't come to my meetings 10 or 15 minutes late because we're 10 or 15 minutes into the meeting.
The president of one of the companies we both worked for, he had a hard and fast rule about it. He had one of those presidential type offices, so he could hold his meetings right there in his office. And he would lock the office door.
Yes.
Charlie.
Yep, Charlie. Yep, I remember.
So you're right. We have behaviors that we let slide, and it turns into the norm. Okay. Now, when we had the pleasure of working together in corporate America, we worked in a facility that had multiple office towers, and each of those towers was 36 stories, something like that. Okay. And even just getting from one floor to the next and our organizations were scattered throughout these office towers. If you start a meeting on the hour and you end a meeting on the hour, it's like you need to have a Star Trek transporter to be able to get to the next one on time. It's just not possible. So we would try things. I tried things like starting the meetings at 5 minutes after the hour and ending it at 5 minutes before the hour or whatever, so that there would be time to take care of things, including travel from room to room or floor to floor or tower to tower, in order to carry on with having all of these really productive, meaningful, efficient, not meetings.
Yeah.
Okay, so there, I don't know how it's handled now, because with so many people working remote, there are less things to get in the way of being able to arrive at a meeting.
It's all still the same issues. Meetings run long. Meetings don't start on time. People are busy. People are doing things. It's all the same stuff.
I started working into the approach a 10-minute technology window, so that if somebody was going to be starting a meeting on the hour, that they should have their technology ready to go. If it was going to be an audio conference, back then, not so much video conference, and whatever it was, so that technology was not the reason that a meeting wouldn't start on time. And I had some success with that, a moderate amount of success with that. I'm not going to fix that problem for everybody, but it's to pay attention to some of those little things that interfere with the efficiency and effectiveness of a given meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's talk about making it an effective meeting, so that we don't have to have the meetings after the meetings. And how many times have you looked at somebody and said, did you just attend the same different meeting? Because
The same different meeting.
because we were both in that room and I did not pick up on X. And how could you have reached a conclusion about Y? Right. Okay. So many things about meetings.
Yeah. I started asking when I would be invited to meetings that I thought, why are you inviting me to this meeting? I don't really care about this project. I have nothing to do with this project. Why do I need to be there? A lot of times it was like, oh, well, so-and-so told me I should invite you because you might have input. I don't want to sit through your hour-and-a-half long meeting because I might have input. Is there something specific you need from me? I'd be happy to have a conversation. But I'm not sitting through a meeting in case I have input. So I started pushing back. Like, you sent me a meeting notice. There's no agenda. I don't know what the topic is. Why do I need to be there? What is my role for this meeting? Mm-hmm. Do I need to be there? As soon as somebody said, no, you don't need to be there, decline. Mm-hmm. I will not be there. And then sometimes people would be like, oh, well, I wanted to make sure you felt included. You don't need to ever include me in a meeting unless I need to be there. If there's some new information that I need, if there's some action that you need me to take, you need something from me, cool. But don't ever just invite me because you think I want to be there.
Yes. Yep.
I didn't want to. I invited 4 people from your team, and I wanted to make sure you didn't feel excluded. Me not getting invited to a meeting will never make me feel excluded. Some people, I get that would hurt their feelings, and they don't like that, but not a problem for me. But just that little bit of pushing back started to get people to think a little bit differently about who they were inviting to their meetings and why they were inviting so many people. The fewer people you have in a meeting, the more work you're going to get done.
And that's the operative right there, getting work done. Meetings should not be an excuse for not getting work done. Meetings should be getting work done. Oh.
Big pet peeve.
Really?
Big pet peeve as you were talking. How many times were you asked to provide the meeting material before the meeting so everyone could have a pre-read? And then you come in and they're like, go ahead and present your material. Well, y'all just saw the material because you made me give it to you a week ago. You've had a week to look at it. Just tell me what your feedback is. Don't make me stand up here and present the material to you that you have read because you demanded a pre-read. Give me your feedback. Drives me insane. Why am I giving you a pre-read and then I'm going to present to you? And then what?
Yeah, so
Nah. Don't waste my time.
It's wait. And it's about these expectations that get calibrated, then totally knocked asunder. If you're going to have pre-read, then the people who are going to be at the meeting have a responsibility to do that. Well, I don't have time because I'm in so many meetings. And these meetings are being spent.
And we come full circle.
Yeah, no kidding.
I worked at a company where they did do the pre-reads, but then the meeting was a conversation about what they read, what they want changed, what they agreed with, what they didn't agree. It was very productive. That's how you do a pre-read. You don't demand a pre-read and then have somebody go through and do their entire presentation. You've read it. Why do I need to stand up here for 45 minutes and present you material that you have already presumably read?
I just heard Bezos talk about how they do that in Amazon.
The pre-read?
Yeah, what they do is they build it into the meeting. So the first half, they don't do PowerPoints. Now, I don't know that this may have been... Death by PowerPoint. I don't know how dated this might have been, but from whatever interview I was watching, he said, we don't do PowerPoint. What we do is we get into the meeting, and the material for the meeting, we spend the first 30 minutes of every meeting digesting the material silently. And because he made a comment, he said that, there are some leaders who can fake it really well, that they've actually read the material. And so you think about, okay, if people are too busy in meetings to be able to prepare for the meetings, then it forces an issue of including prep time as a function of the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I had a little heartburn about that. But going back to, if you make a meeting something of value,
yeah,
not just a block of time that's going to be keeping you from doing stuff that's productive, but it in and of itself is a productive environment, then meetings become really powerful, and you've got the right people in the room to achieve the goal, which there should never be the goal of review the status report. No. If you have a status report, you don't need to hold an event to review it.
No, that's an email.
Yes. One of the things I had put in place whenever was the 515 report. And this was a report that at the end of each week took less than 15 minutes or less to create and less than 5 minutes to read. And it had 4 main sections. What did get achieved, any kinds of surprises that we came up against, what's on the docket for next week, and then things that came up that we're not sure where they fit, but we don't want to lose these ideas. Mm-hmm. They had very clever titles, but that was generally the thing. So even if you have 10 projects going in your organization, you've got a total of 50 minutes on your time to catch up on everything. And it didn't take a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And then think about how much time goes into preparing for a meeting.
Oh, ridiculous amount of time.
Right. So what if you start costing that out?
Because you can't make a mistake. Because then you're going to be labeled for the rest of your career. That you
got
screwed
the
up.
scarlet letter. Oh, my gosh. Yes. Okay. Pet peeves.
So the meetings after the meetings sometimes can be really insightful.
Agreed.
Because typically the people having the meetings after the meetings are the people that should have been in the room in the first place without all the other people. So they're having the conversation about what we can do, what actions we can take, how do we get stuff done.
And so
what a waste of time that was.
Yeah. Now, I would characterize, in my mind, the meeting after the meeting I was really finite in what that represented. That represented people who didn't feel that they could speak up and discuss or challenge or whatever during the meeting.
Absolutely.
Versus, okay, I just was in this meeting. I'm going to go get Michelle and Gail, and we're going to talk about this because I think there's something that we might be able to do. That was like us doing our job. So my meeting after the meeting, pet peeve, was when people choose to not engage during the meeting for fear of getting an assignment or being called out or
Yeah, that goes back to the psychological safety, right? I don't feel safe
Yes.
to speak up, so I'm not going to. But one-on-one, I maybe have more safety with somebody, so I will have that meeting after the meeting and be like, here's what I was thinking.
which could indeed change the course of human events. And wouldn't it be nice to not have another meeting after the meeting to be able to say, oh, wow, we didn't talk about this, and Michelle brought it up to me, and I think we really need to come back together and talk about that.
It's a perpetual meeting loop.
Yes, yeah. So what is it that you do to make sure in your meetings that there is a clear reason, a clear output, which isn't that we reviewed something, but it's a clear output, a plan of action, decisions that needed to be, whatever it might be, that there's a clear output, a reason for having it. That's why POA is such an interesting little model. You got your purpose, you got your outcomes or objectives, and then you've got your agenda.
One of the things that I have often done with larger meetings is spend a few minutes at the beginning to talk about what are our outcomes, and everyone in the room has input on that. And it's quick. What are the behaviors we need to exhibit in this room in order to achieve those outcomes? Deer in the headlight look. What do you mean? Well, we've got a variety of levels in the room. Is everyone free to speak? Is everyone free to challenge? Are we going to interrupt each other? Are we going to let each other finish their sentences? What behaviors do we need to exhibit in order to achieve those outcomes? Oh, and then people start throwing out things. And then my last question is usually, and who's going to hold everyone accountable to those behaviors? And everyone looks around the room. And I'm like, that's right. Everyone can raise their hand and say, we have behaviors over here and we're not abiding by those right now. And then we can move forward with the meeting. And almost always after those meetings, when I've set them up that way, people will come to me and say, that was the best meeting we've ever had. Right. Because we had clear outcomes and we had clear behaviors on how we're going to achieve them.
I always
carry that forward to your next meeting.
Yeah, no kidding. I always had that ground rules discussion at the beginning of every meeting. And I had a set of ground rules that I would seed them with. What of these ground rules need to be changed? What needs to be added? Because especially if it's a group I'm not familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
I will
You're
admit,
nicer than I am. I didn't want to give them anything. I wanted them to come up with it because I'm like, I don't know you people. And if I do know you people, then it's even worse. But I'm like, nope. If they come up with them, they'll abide by them versus me going, here's our ground rules.
And it was, again, a seed saying, okay,
Yeah.
we need to have an agreement about how we are going to be together
Yeah.
in this room.
But so few people do that. People just come into a meeting and they start the meeting. They just start talking. People are sitting there like, why am I here? What's the objective? What are we aiming for here? Is this just a report out? Can I ask questions? My favorite is don't ask questions until the very end. You've talked about 32 different topics and I have to wait till the end. And then at the end, you have 5 minutes. I have 10 questions and 32 other thoughts. But I can't share any of them because you don't want a conversation. You want to just present for 55 minutes for a 60-minute meeting.
So think about.
Again, why am I here?
Yes.
Because that could have been an email.
Honestly. So there's so much that goes into this.
But at the end of the day, a meeting should have some sort of information that's new to me. I should walk away, not that I'm looking for more work, but that I should walk away with some sort of action item, some new knowledge, or I have imparted new knowledge on someone else. If none of those things are happening, I don't need to be there.
Yeah.
And you should have a clear objective for your meeting.
Absolutely.
And it should be stated in your meeting invitation. No more blank meeting invitations.
I hadn't
Give me an agenda.
I hadn't seen an unobjectived meeting notice. I usually always.
Always?
Yeah, there's a story. Okay. But regularly I would receive meeting notices that said, this is the title, this is what we want to achieve.
I can say almost never, usually never.
Okay.
Receive those. Blank, nothing. Maybe an attachment
Okay.
for like, here's a pre-read, but they don't tell you it's a pre-read.
Okay.
But 98% of the time, no information in the meeting notice. None.
So
Even the title doesn't give it away.
yes. Yes. Got to get real creative sometimes. So something for you to think about. What, if any, of these types of behaviors are you witnessing? Are you exhibiting? Is there condoning of poor meeting etiquette, like arrive on time, and you as the meeting facilitator, you are responsible for starting and ending on time?
I don't know if I've shared this before, but I worked at a company, and I probably already shared the story in a different podcast, but I'll share it again.
Okay.
Every meeting would start with 10 to 15 minutes of people complaining and bitching about whatever. And I am so tired of it. So I walked in with a cat scratch post one day, and I set it down on the middle of the conference room table. Bam! And I said, I'll be back in 10 minutes. Do whatever y'all need to do, but when I come back, we're starting the meeting. I don't have time for this. So I did that. We had a regular Monday meeting, and every Monday, that's how we started the meeting. I walked in, I set my cat scratch post on the table, and I left. And I would come back 10 to 12 minutes later. They would get it all out of their system, and then we would have a meeting. It's like,
You think about, these become the norms.
they needed to have their little gossipy complain time with each other. It was the only time that particular group of people were together. So I was like, have at it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to be a part of it. But it wasn't going to change. So I was like, my point was made. Like, you guys are being very catty, and I don't like it. So they teased me about that for years. But I was like, I'm not going to sit and listen to it.
No.
And I can't, they're not going to be paying attention to me because they're going to be IMing each other, So it was like they got it out of their system, and we had productive meetings. But not that I recommend that.
But the point being, that, you look at what are the behaviors, and as the leader, what choices are you making to encourage the behaviors that are healthy and productive, and discourage those that get in the way of that?
Yeah. I had a team that we used to do stand-up meetings, literally. We would stand in a circle, no technology was allowed, and it was 10 or 15 minutes of what's your plan for the week.
Manufacturing.
It actually wasn't, believe it or not.
Really? Oh, wow.
But no technology was allowed.
Yeah.
And then we'd come up with things like people might need help with something. And so we had a little card system. So if you needed help after that meeting, you would fill out a little 5x6 card and put what you needed help on. And then other people would put, here's how I can help you. And then you took the card, and it was up to you to follow up with the people that said they could help you. It was a very good system. It was very cool.
Nice.
Yeah. But yeah, they do similar in manufacturing, but it's what are we going to do on the line today, and what are our objectives, and what targets we have to hit, and all that. Yeah, very common. But yeah, I stole that and thought, let's try this in the office setting and see how it works. It was a good thing.
Yes. That opportunity to connect, make sure we're all set on what the objectives are for the week, what are the challenges we're going to have to make, and all that. Yes. Think about how many meetings get saved.
Yeah.
By just doing that. 10 to 15 minutes a week.
Yeah.
Imagine.
Set the whole team up for success, and if you're stuck somewhere, you're going to get help. It's on you to get it, but you're going to get it.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's reduce that 30 to 45,000 hours over the course of your career that you're spending in meetings.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. There's a goal. And think about the amount those meetings cost, not just in terms of time, but in dollars. How many?
And mental energy.
Yes. Yes. Okay, so let's stop wasting that.
Yes.
There's too much good work to be done to be wasting that kind of time.
Amen.
I'm Carla Lewis.
I'm Doc Shelley. We'll see you next time.
what choices are you making to encourage behaviors that are healthy and productive and discourage those that get in the way of that?